Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and somewhere in between, wherever you are in this world and on this planet, the rented space. Uh, I'm Cal Griffin. I'm here with my assistant and student, Julie, and another student. Uh, uh, I'm sorry, what was your name again? Hello,
Zanin? Yeah,
Xenon. Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
sorry. I
no
had a brain
worries.
fart. I had a brain fart. Age thing. So, so yeah. Like I said to everybody, and that a disclaimer that I do, and it varies from day to day, or from cast to cast, that we acknowledge no religion, no sexual identity, no political stance, and will not play to that agenda. And if you show up from an invite, if those topics are touched on, then you will be removed from the room. I have a no tolerance policy of that. This is on Jediism, which is a spiritual belief and practice, and in some cases, a religion. So, with that being said, please do not test that disclaimer. So I will embarrass you. So, anyway, with that being said, onward. So, something that I was having a discussion with somebody with the other day about knighthood and the accountability aspects that go with it. That people want to become a knight in the Jedi community. But however, the one thing that isn't done, or that in my time in this, is that people get the title and they go, oh, I'm a knight now, you know, but yet cease to be that knight, cease to keep following through. So, um, people get knighted and then they back off. And there's a term for that called peacocking. Okay. And that become this, and they get bestowed this title. And so they think that's where their work ends. Well, the good news is you've got the title. Okay. The bad news is it just starts. Being a knight and staying a knight and being what that title is are three very different things. Wanting to be a knight is the desire for it. Wanting and becoming is when one is bestowed, one has to understand that there are certain responsibilities that come with that title. It's not just a title. It's not just like you put on a business suit and you take it off and show up when you feel like it. You are a example. You are a representation of what order you got that from. You are the example. And so that brings me to this, is the accountability of it. When one becomes a knight, you have to hold yourself to acknowledging where you are not following through, and then do something about it. You have to maintain it. It's in the job description. It's part of the duty of being a knight. It's not just a title. It's being a knight. Yes, there is recognition with that. And if that's all you're after, then don't even step up to get the title and work for it. You're just soothing your own ego and stroking it. And that puts a bad name to that order and to you. And believe it or not, that title can be removed. The people that gave it to you can remove it. I don't know how often that happens, if any, but it should be done. Because not only are you making your master look bad, you're making the order and everybody else who looks up to you, you're giving them a false sense. So ask yourself before you become a knight if you're willing to stay at that. Are you willing to stick with those principles? Are you willing to stick with the character of being a knight? And I'm going to go down my list here and bring up the definitions of the let's see. Yeah, here we are. Okay. Hmm. Okay. There's several that go with it, but the one I'm touching on today is accountability. All right. Where did it go? Where are you? Where are you? Morals. Ah, here we are. Accountability. Okay. Accountability. Knowing the motive behind the reason and being honest about those motives without justifying them. Before we hold anyone else accountable, we ask ourselves if we are justified in action or thoughtful and take this into account. Now, if you're a knight, did you think about that? Did you think about all those things right there I just listed off? If you didn't, then why step up to be a knight? Because when one becomes a knight, there are choices and actions that are going to have to be done. And you took them on when you became one, is you're going to have to speak up and say things that other people aren't going to be able to. You're going to have to do things for others if they can't do it. And say things to people and be that voice that others aren't. And also leading the leadership part of that means you step up to take the heat. You're the person that represents that. And also have to make decisions that a lot of people aren't going to like sometimes and say things that people aren't going to like. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore their feelings about it or what they may think, but what they may think is immaterial. And that when one has to say something that is honest and truthful, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like what they hear. But isn't that why you signed on to be a knight also? You know, knight has character. They have integrity. And being a knight, you have to uphold that and not just get it and just slack and just do and just, oh, well, I'm a knight now. Well, I guess work's over. No. When you were an apprentice, an initiate, all of that, that was learning how to be a knight. You're learning how to walk. And that if that person that didn't teach you how to walk, well, because you might be a less than a substandard knight, falls on the shoulders of that person that taught you. The work starts when you become a knight. The real work. And you keep going. And then, when people go, well, I want to be a master, before they're even a knight. Let me tell you something about masterhood. You're going to make way more mistakes being a master than you are as a knight. And they are going to be they're going to be more consequences with that. And that if you're unwilling to be a knight, then what makes anyone think and you think that you can handle being a master if you can't even be a knight the right way and the correct way? So think before you leap into knighthood. Don't just get it just to make yourself look good and to get that false humility. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to others. And just because you're a knight doesn't give you the right to disrupt either. Have respect for those that bestowed this on you. Don't make a scene in the order you're from. Get to call people out, pull them offside, show some respect. Well, if you're doing that, well, I'm doing it because I'm a knight. No, you're doing it because you think you're entitled because you have the title of a knight. There's a difference. That shows lack of character, shows lack of integrity. A knight is, in a way, professional about how they conduct themselves. When you get up and you go out into society, when you get around people, if somebody's causing a problem, talk to that person. If that person is unwilling to listen, then don't waste your time. If they are causing a problem for everybody else, if they don't listen to warnings, then by all means, call the cops. And if at last resort, if a confrontation has to happen, make it quick. Get it over. And I'm not going to go into details on that. You can use your own judgment. But make sure you considered all the consequences when you do. And weigh them heavily. Consider your options. But back to the accountability. When one is a knight and somebody gives you some criticism or either poking at you and saying something that you didn't want to hear, and they're also offering you something that will help you become better at in that position and in that status, consider what they've said. Think about it, reflect on it. And if you do something wrong and it fits in front of a group of people, apologize to that group wholeheartedly and seriously. Mean it. And take your lumps with it. You know, I've had to do that. There was a group I was with, an order, and I had made a mistake in something. I publicly apologized to that group in a statement. And also, I had said something in a coffee shop Jedi group. And I had to apologize to that whole group. I made a statement and posted it. It was not, neither one of those were my best moments. But that's part of being a knight. If you screw up, acknowledge it. If you screw up, admit it. If you screw up, do something about it. Own it. Those were your actions and your decisions. Don't just brush it off, but also learn from it too. Think ahead. Be accountable to it. But the other side of being a knight is that you get to train people. You get to teach. You have something behind your name. You have a credential. But be sure when you teach, it's for the better of everybody and not not just your self-interest. Don't preach something that is because it's what you want to teach. Let it have substance for everybody else. Let it have something somebody can learn from. I'm offering that suggestion because that's part of being a knight. You're offering. You're willing to do that. You're willing to teach for the greater, not for yourself, not because of the title. It's because you've learned to be able to teach. You've learned enough to teach it. And that also, along with teaching, you're learning at the same time. provided it's a good group of students. And if it's a good group of students, they will push you. They will cause you to question what you have said and for you to think about it. And you'll learn as well. You're not just a know all and that what I say is final. That's not how it works. But you're still willing to learn. You make your mistakes also. But you should have the tools in place to be able to manage that mistake. Because you're building a relationship with yourself and you're still building a relationship more so with the community and with the order. And because you're a knight does not mean that you get to leave your mentor, your master. No, stay with that person as long as possible. And if you are released, stay in contact with them because they are still going to teach you. And students are still going to teach you. Your apprentice, your initiate is still going to teach you. That's the beauty of this. That's the benefit. That's the privilege to it. And that's what's valuable about this. Because if you do value this, you will take what comes with it and it will offer you so much more. But if you're not serious and you're doing it just as a stepping stone, don't step forward to volunteer, to learn, and take the classes to become a knight. So I'm going to ask a question for those that are knights and for those that are thinking about being a knight. What is your biggest fear? What part of yourself have you not faced? And what are you not willing to admit? Those are three questions, yes. But what are you not willing to face? What are you keeping hidden? Now, I'm not saying say what they are, but that is what a knight has to be able to do. They have to be able to be introspective. That's part of accountability. What was my motive to this? What was my real reason for doing what I did? Was I just being self entitled because I have a title? Or were you doing it just because you were having a bad day? Or were you wanting to make a disruption because you felt like you weren't being heard and that something needed to be done because individuals were making it difficult for you to not be heard? If that be the case, then by all means, make a stink because that means things are not right. That's when you step forward and you have everybody take notice to it. But if you're doing it because you just want to get noticed, you want the attention, then stay quiet. And if you're unwilling to ask yourself difficult questions and face the answers, then you're not ready to be a knight either. My student, I've had her undergo some very deep personal things. And also, my other student had them look into things, and the other one's looking into things now that are difficult to face. But that's what a good mentor, master, teacher, instructor does, because they've done it themselves. They know what it's about. They've experienced it. If you haven't done that and you haven't experienced it, don't ask somebody else to do it. Are there going to be days that you're not going to have confidence in this? Sure. That doesn't mean you're no less of a knight. A knight's willing to say, I don't know, and why am I doing this still? It's okay to question it. It's okay to not blindly follow it. If you're asked questions about everything else, why can't you ask questions about where you are and this title and what you're doing with it? That's good. That's being self-aware, and that's being accountable. So after you've heard this podcast, what were some of uh, the questions you asked yourself? What were your answers? Were they awkward to admit? Were they awkward to come to? Well, then, congratulations. If you were able to be honest with yourself, you've grown. And I congratulate you, because that's a hard step to take. It's not easy. You are evaluating yourself. Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. We are our worst critics, and we are merely the performers. Maybe not verbatim, but you get the gist. So we are our worst critics. We are the hardest on ourselves. And in a way, we have to be. But we also have to be able to practice the compassion and the empathy. We have to understand those. So, also with being a knight, yeah, it's a lot of work. But on that, learn those other things too, practice them. Understand what those things mean. They aren't just for everybody else, they are also for you. They're not just for cash register, they're not just for face value. Take those things to heart: empathy, compassion, grace, mercy, understanding, acceptance, character, integrity, morals, ethics, acceptance, accountability. All of those, and have that in mind, and be responsible to that. And that's the big one, is responsibility to this. Because you also are responsible to that order. You're also responsible for the people that gave you that title, that saw you to be fit for it. Now, I'm going to go to a tangent here for a minute. I'm going to step off this for a moment. There are people in the community that are less than honorable, and that because of their title, they take advantage of that. And what student wouldn't be happy to go, wow, I'm being taught by a master. Wow, I'm being taught by a knight that's got this much time. Well, just so happens maybe one of those isn't really the most honorable masters. Maybe they have other motives that are, let's say, harmful. And say there's another knight who's trying to teach and wants to teach people, but yet also they take advantage of that in very nefarious ways. If you're one of those, step down. Step down, relinquish your titles. Because you're doing harm to the community. And if you're one of those that has no place to go because of your own actions, you're unwilling to learn, and you're unwilling to face the fire and change, step down. Relinquish your title. You don't deserve it. You're not what you promised and swore to be. There should be an oath when you become each. If you don't uphold that, step down, walk away, go back to the hole you came out of. Leave this community alone. Go get help. See a therapist. Take medication, whatever it takes. Step away. Walk away from it. And if you're trying to be a master or a knight because of your own motives, because you're trying to promote something else, get out. Move away from the community, please. You're not doing it any good. You're giving it a bad name. And people go, why are the Sith getting more? Why are these messed up people that are Sith going to that? It's because the community failed them. It's because these knights and these masters failed them. They weren't honest. They did it for the wrong reasons. If you're one of those, step away. Please step away. Leave. I implore to you, leave. Because we're trying to get this community back together. We're trying to keep it together. And it takes quality of those with titles to keep it together, that want to make it work. If you're one of those that's doing harm, leave. Or be willing to be called out and straighten up. Anyway, I digress. I just needed to say that. But that comes in part with the accountability, the responsibilities to it. You're not just responsible to the order, you're responsible for the Jedi community. You've taken that weight on your shoulders willingly. And ask yourself why you haven't. If you need time away, that's fair. That's fine. Everybody does. But say, I need time away. I'm not in a good place. I need to step away for a little bit. A good knight and a good master does that. They admit they are in a tough place. But it's what you do to get yourself back out of that also. You know, that's what matters. Somebody who's a responsible and an accountable knight and an accountable master will do those things and will say, look, I'm in no position right now with myself to do this. Don't struggle through it. Maybe the struggle is good for you. People are supposed to suffer. That's what being a knight is all about also, is learning to suffer. You have to. That way you can understand somebody else's suffering. That's part of it. That's part of the job. It's part of the description. It's part of the duty. It's how you come out on the other side and through it is what is the difference. You stepped into that when you took on the title, when you wanted to be that. You said, I am willing to suffer. I am willing to take on the hardships. I am willing to not be liked. Because none of those things that other people may think or say about you, you don't have to go to bed with that. You go to bed with yourself. You turn the lights off. You go to sleep with yourself, not those other people. They don't walk in your shoes either. They walk on their own. But don't also use that as an excuse. Oh, you don't know what kind of life I've had. Frankly, it doesn't matter. It's what you've done to get out of it. It's what you've done to change it. It's what you're doing to change it. Are you staying in it, or are you taking action to do something about it? There's a difference. So that's also something to think about. So again, ask yourselves, why did you become a knight? What are you willing to do to be that knight? What are you willing to do as a knight and during it? Just because you're messing up doesn't mean you're any less of a knight. That's part of it. That's part of the process. You're supposed to. You're supposed to learn from it. It's part of it. That's just part of the job description. is we all mess up. But are you continually repeating it, or are you doing something to not do it? Hmm? But if you keep seeking it out, then obviously you're really not doing anything to work on it because you keep seeking it out. You keep looking for it. You keep putting yourself in that position. And it's not up to me what your reasons or excuses are. They're yours, but you're the one that lives with it, not me or anybody else. They're yours. You're the one that ultimately has to live with them and deal with them. So I know I'm being pretty hard on this whole topic, but I want people to understand that when one becomes a knight, it just gets more challenging. When you've taken it on, you've said, I am ready. Because everybody else who graded you and watched you said, yeah, they're ready. But here's the other thing is if you've done everything and you don't think you deserve it, then you do. A knight never says, I deserve it. You don't expect to get a gift because it's your birthday, do you? It's nice, yeah. And we all know for the most part, yes, we're going to get something for our birthdays. But however, it's that unexpected gift. It's because people saw in you that, yes, this is going to be a quality night. This is going to be a night that is worth holding this title. We should be good with this without any doubt. So let me go back to something here that I looked on my list of stuff. You know, I was talking about principles earlier. Knowing the difference between right and wrong. We would like to think we know or have been taught this at some point in our lives, either as as we're being raised, or either we're being taught this. However, this isn't always the case. Circumstances change our principles, events can change our principles, but however, do they really? Because if you have principles and you know those things before those situations start or circumstances start, and they do change, then you never really had them to begin with. But if you return back to them, yes, you do. And yes, you did prior to the events, the circumstances, because they will always guide you in your efforts. Your conscience will weigh on you. You will question what you've done when you did it. You will second guess yourself. That's good. That means you have principles. If you are not second guessing yourself and you are not questioning what you're doing, then go back and check your principles. Please go back and check them. And really and truly, I shouldn't even be asking you to. You should be doing it yourself without being asked. So this is always a hard topic. When this gets brought up, people get offended. People get butthurt over it. They say, well, you're not being compassionate, not being understanding. No, I am. Well, you're not being fair. Yes, I am. I'm being compassionate as well. Because I'm bringing these things out for people's attention so they don't have to maybe suffer in the future or they can change. That's also compassion. Taking notice of it and helping somebody else take notice of it when they don't want to is also compassion. And the empathy part of it, yes. Yeah, because I've been in those shoes and people brought it to me. So it's my job to bring it back out to somebody else, whoever that may be. And of course, where I'm at is higher than a knight, but still, nonetheless, still have to keep an eye on those things. So, and this is going to be a short one today, I think, but those things I've asked and things I've mentioned, those that are a knight and thinking about being a knight, if you can answer any of those questions, honestly, don't bother. Do it when you can. Because when you get the title and you haven't answered those questions yet, it's too late. And if somebody says, hey, we're going to do this with you, say, no, I'm not there yet. And there's nothing wrong with going back, going, hey, look, there's some questions I still can't answer. And I need to be able to answer them. And I haven't yet. I have to relinquish this title and step away. Because if you can't answer those questions and you keep going on with this false sense, you're not doing yourself any good or anybody else around you. You're not doing them any good either. So the thought I want to leave with you today is, why did you want to become a Jedi? Why did you want to start down this path? And don't use the generic answer of, well, I wanted to be a Jedi. I wanted to do good and make change in the world. Don't use that answer. That is the most generic answer anybody can give. Do it because you want to grow, you want to change, you want to become. So I'm going to leave you with that. Everybody have a good day, good evening, and good morning. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy yourselves, but don't bring harm to others. Hal Griffin out. Thank you.